Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to your Health Matters here on Kaieteur Radio. I'm your host, Rehanna Ramsay. I hope everyone is doing well this afternoon. I must apologize for the late start. There was so much happening this morning, and as a journalist, reporter, radio host, and whatever else cap I wear, it gets kind of hectic. So I must apologize. But today we're discussing polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, which is a very important topic for so many women, affecting so many women. And we have with us via Zoom, virtually. We're still trying to take precaution and so on, even though we're slowly reeling out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have with us Dr. Caleb McLaughlin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's an
endocrinologist.
Endocrinologist, sorry. And Ms. Tiffany Manbo of the Sisterhood Support Group and local NGO, and she helps to spread awareness of PCOS. I know the word, for some reason my brain just zoned out. So thank you so much for your patience and for joining us today to discuss PCOS. And I will let the first question go to Dr. McLaughlin, because he is an endocrinologist, a person who specializes in this area. And then we'll have Kimberly chime in on her experience, because she's been diagnosed with PCOS and she runs an organization that basically seeks to raise awareness and tries to educate people on the silent suffering of women who are affected by this condition. So Dr. McLaughlin, can you tell us what you do as an endocrinologist, and just a little bit, because we don't have a lot of time, and then you can tell us what PCOS really is, and basically that it can affect anybody. So go ahead.
Yes, first of all, good afternoon, Ms. Ramsay. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
PCOS is basically well, let me tell you first what an endocrinologist does. An endocrinologist is someone who specializes in the glands in the body that produce various hormones. These glands include things like the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, your pancreas, your ovaries, your testicles. Any gland in the body that produces, adrenal gland also, that produces hormone. We specialize in that area. As you guys know, hormones are basically, like, you call them chemical messengers that controls everything in the body as a whole. Yes. All right, so that's basically what I specialize in.
Wow.
Yes, so as it relates to PCOS, PCOS is actually defined when it's first of all, we have to make it clear that PCOS is not a disease, because we do not have a defining cause as yet. PCOS is a syndrome, and as of 2003, we have been defining PCOS in persons who may have had basically 2 out of the 3 things I'm about to mention to say that they have PCOS. Those are signs of hyperandrogenism, or you call that persons who have excess body hair or hirsutism, persons who may have ovarian dysfunction as it relates to them having been missing their menstrual cycle, or having prolonged bleeds and so on, and persons who may have what you call polycystic ovarian morphologies in ultrasounds. So if any of those 2 criteria that I mentioned there is actually found in any patient, that person, unless the person is an adolescent, that person can be considered to be having PCOS, or you say that that is PCOS in that person.
And this affects a person's ability to have children, but there are certain other things that it affects as well. Can you speak to that?
Yes, but Ms. Ramsay, one of the main things that we have been finding here in Guyana, when patients come to me concerning saying they have PCOS, they come because of the fear of them not being able to conceive. So you hit the hammer on the nail by starting with the issues that relates to difficulty conceiving. I keep using the word difficulty conceiving and not infertility, because for me that doesn't exist in PCOS patients. They have a bit of difficulty, but them speaking to the right person will actually place them on a normal playing field with like anyone who doesn't have PCOS. So difficulty conceiving is one. We have these persons who be having a fourfold risk of developing type 2 diabetes. We have them having cholesterol issues. We have them having, well, based on the phenotype, we have them having social issues like because of how they may have excess body hair or the excess body weight and so on. They go into depression. Some of them have anxiety, sleeping disorders. It's a range. Like if we continue listing these things, you will be amazed. We have one thing very important I keep mentioning to all of my patients is the increased risk of having endometrial cancer when you have PCOS. So there are a variety of stuff. I basically mentioned some of the most important ones that tend to affect women these days.
Oh, so that's a wide range of spin-offs from this condition. Yeah. In terms of a person being diagnosed, you said that usually people come to you when they find out and we're very worried. I'll have Kimberly talk a little bit about some of the silent, and I say silent because I'm told that a lot of people may be suffering from this condition and they don't know what to do, or a lot of them haven't, come forward, but because of, they probably don't even know that they have it because they see the symptoms, but they don't know what it is, and they don't think that it's something abnormal. So let me ask Kimberly first. Kimberly, how often do you find, I know that you're a medical person as well and that you run this organization, how often do you find women coming to you who were like shocked after a very long time, then they realize that this thing has a name? Oh, they're going through prolonged menstrual bleeding, or sometimes they're skipping their cycle, and then they didn't know it was PCOS, and then when they find out, they're shocked, and then they want support. So how often does that happen in your view? Does it happen a lot?
Hi, good afternoon, Ms. Ramsay. Thank you so much for having me. So as it relates to PCOS and women coming forward, I must say it has been about 2 years now since the launch of my organization, and we started to do a lot of awareness sessions that women are more aware of what polycystic ovarian syndrome is, and as such, we have more women coming forward. However, based on sharing information and making persons more cognizant of the changes within their body, that also prompted them to come forward as well. Also, having other women share their stories, it created that space for women to feel more comfortable to open up about their disorder and to seek help. And as such, through our social media platform, we have daily many women coming in with reports of various symptoms or signs that they're experiencing. And from there, we would take it to set up their referrals or to, do further interview or intervention to know exactly what is happening with them, how long they've been experiencing it, and so forth.
And this is something that they constantly come in with. Okay, I'm experiencing this prolonged bleeding or whatever it is. But in terms of diagnosis, you can't just diagnose it because of, they're experiencing it. They have to get it from a doctor, and that's where Dr. McLaughlin, you can speak to that. In terms of diagnosis, you definitely need to get a medical person to diagnose you.
If I may, before Dr. McLaughlin goes on to add, it's important to know that a lot of women may complain of these symptoms, but some of these symptoms that are signs that they experience, it can mirror other disorders as well.
Yes.
So of course, most definitely you'll need to seek a specialist, and you'll need to have further physical examinations and evaluation done. And of course, this is where Dr. McLaughlin comes in within his specialty.
Dr. McLaughlin.
Yes, Ms. Ramsay. So like I was about to say, basically PCOS is a diagnosis by exclusion. Having cysts on your ovaries doesn't necessarily mean you have PCOS. Having a regular menstrual cycle doesn't necessarily mean you have PCOS. Having excess body hair, excess body weight doesn't necessarily mean you have PCOS. So what we normally do when we exclude other endocrine causes that may mimic PCOS, then is when we basically say that you have PCOS. And these things are things like hyperprolactinemia. We have things like Cushing's disease. We have things like hyperthyroidism. We have things like exogenous obesity. We have things like congenital adrenal hyperplasia. We have idiopathic causes of hemorrhagism. All of these things, when we rule them out via blood testing, that is when we can basically say that that person may have PCOS with some degree of certainty, like a 98% degree of certainty. So what is happening right now in Ghana, you find so many women, I'm telling you, every day at my clinic, we find one or two of them come in just because they went to a sonologist. The sonologist did an ultrasound, they saw cysts, they were told that they have PCOS. No, there are so many other diseases that may mimic that, and that is what we need to exclude before we drop that bombshell on that person. Because there are so many misconceptions about PCOS that that person may jump into depression immediately. So it's very important that these patients seek help, but seek the right help also.
And that basically means that you can be misdiagnosed a lot.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, the NIH, the National Institute of Health in the UK, found that 70% of patients are actually misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed, or the diagnosis was missed with PCOS in the primary healthcare system. This is not me pulling figures out of my
international?
Head. No, international. But wow. This study was based in the UK. But basically, they're saying that 70% of these patients, 70 are undiagnosed or underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed. So I just wanted to see the extent to which we need to create so much awareness about this.
Mm-hmm. And because you don't have a actual cause or causation, as you would say in science, we have different things that you probably would say it could stem from heredity. You don't know. Do you find that a lot of patients who come to you, their family would have had the same condition? Do you find that? Or is it something that, okay, that somebody could just develop basically off their own?
Yes, actually, although we have a limited amount of studies as it relates to PCOS, we have found that there's a hereditary factor there, always. There's a genetic factor. There's a theory which states that 40% of the world population is born with this defective gene that triggers PCOS, right? However, everybody do not develop it unless, they start having a sedentary lifestyle or they start eating bad and these sort of things. And those are the things that trigger it. But we have seen a high degree of penetrance in terms of genetic penetrance of persons developing PCOS, because I currently have patients where I have like 3 sisters and a mother with an aunt in my clinic. They're all diagnosed with PCOS. So yes, there's a strong genetic factor that is involved. But what triggers it further is the environmental factor, what we eat, basically, and how we carry ourselves in terms of exercising.
And you have to be, Kimberly, for somebody who deals with that, tell me some of the things that you do to make sure. And this might not, and I think I spoke to Dr. McLaughlin before we went on air about it. It wouldn't work for everyone because everyone is their individual self and everybody has their own regimen based on their examination and what their doctor recommends. But there are general things, as you said, diet, exercise, and stuff. Some of the things that you do, Kimberly, to make sure that that it doesn't get the best of you, that your PCOS stays at, bay, the symptoms doesn't basically result in, the worst case scenario where you're experiencing, infertility or whatever it is, that it could lead to cancers and development and so on. So tell me, what are some of the things that you do as a person who is dealing with PCOS?
Well, Ms. Ramsay, with PCOS and just like any other disorder or disease, lifestyle changes is important, and this includes diet and exercise. And of course, treatment will vary from person to person because it's a syndromic disorder. It all depends on the symptoms that you're experiencing and those things that you would want to treat.
Yes.
As it relates to treatment, that is something that we try not to publicly speak about because you don't want persons to go buying medication to self-medicate.
Yes.
And then if they do have PCOS, they can make it worse. Or if they don't, then they can trigger something else, because you find a lot of persons self-medicate, or even if they're prescribed medication, they don't adhere to their treatment. So the lifestyle changes is first and foremost important. And then based on your symptoms that you're experiencing, then your treatment will be used to target that.
And Dr. McLaughlin, is it so you would basically recommend that a person who has certain symptoms, they go see a doctor? Because as Kimberly was saying, you can be misdiagnosed and take medication that could make the condition worse or make your condition worse. So is there a specialist? I know you have a specialty that you operate under, but are there specialists in Guyana that we can go to know specifically that this thing is PCOS or not?
Yes, well, that is where basically I come in. Like, I can speak for myself. Fortunately, I'm here in Guyana, and fortunately, I have had the privilege of seeing over 600 and something PCOS patients over the last, let's say, 9 months, 9 to 10 months.
600, wow.
And yes, amazingly, most of these patients, I have them, currently they're pregnant. Most of them came because of pregnancy. Some of them came because of excess body hair. They don't want to get pregnant. But the amazing thing about it, I think I'm the only doctor in Guyana who has, let me say, like, I have like 5 patients out of the 600 and something patients on oral contraceptives.
Wow.
So we have a very robust approach. I have 2 gynecologists that work with me. I have 2 dietitians that work with me. We have dermatologists, cardiologists, everybody, because it's a multidisciplinary approach when you have to deal with these patients. But generally, I'm the one that put the hormone back in its place where it's supposed to be. And there's a cocktail of drug that I use that doesn't include oral contraceptives that have almost all, until like 98 or 99% of my patients with a regular cycle, ovulating and having their lives back how it's supposed to be. So yeah.
Wow. And these persons that come to you have their specific treatment regimen. No 2 persons are the same.
No. They're not. We have to look at the person's economic situation. Ever so often, there's some persons who can afford to do certain things and some that may not. Like, I cannot recommend a certain type of diet, all right? Because diet plays a very important role. Many persons feel using the medication, that's all. No, diet and exercise play a very important role. As you guys know, I don't know. Every so often when I speak with these patients, that's why follow-up is very important. I keep reinforcing diet and exercise. If not, what you'll be doing is fighting against the medication.
Yeah. And in terms of, you said that PCOS doesn't necessarily mean infertility. How often do you find, at what rate or at what stage does PCOS indefinitely affect that part of your body, that it affects you, that you can't have children or you can't conceive?
No, well, with the advancement of ARTs, or assisted reproductive technology, we have medication that can assist these patients. Like I said, there's a cocktail depending on BMI, depending on the patient's situation, that we can give them to make sure that they ovulate. All of my patients that I have in my clinic, every month I can actually show them that they're ovulating. I can prove to them with the treatment that we use that they ovulate. But there's something you call nature, right? Not because you're ovulating, it means that a pregnancy will occur, with or without PCOS. That's why one of the definitions to say a couple is important by the WHO is that you must be having intercourse at least twice a week unprotected for a year or more, and not conceive. Then you can consider that you have a fertility issue. So I keep explaining to patients, even though we give them these cocktails and they're ovulated, sometimes you have to trust the process and wait for it to happen. All right. So I won't say there's no point where PCOS can make you infertile unless you go and self-medicate and overstimulate your ovaries and damage them. But then that's something else. But once you have PCOS and you come to me, I will make you ovulate. We can get you there. Once you don't have other entities, because there are a lot of other things that can make it complicated, like if you have fibroids, if fallopian tubes have some sort of disorders, these sort of things. But generally just PCOS, it's a walk in the park for me.
We know that PCOS is not a disease, but is the condition curable? Can somebody say after treatment, is it something that they can be totally rid of?
No, actually, with the data we have so far, we have seen persons continue even perimenopausal periods with the same symptoms. There's no cure to date. There's no cure. However, we have seen regression in terms of persons after getting pregnant and these sort of things. After their first child, most persons' period would regulate and most of the symptoms may subside, but it's always there. In order for that to happen, again, diet and exercise is a very important aspect of it. But there's no cure to it.
There's no cure. But there is a treatment and it's manageable. This is a manageable condition. That's what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All of my patients, like I keep explaining, all of my patients, every time they follow up, they keep losing weight. And that's very important. Once you keep your BMI in order, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Once you follow the regimen that we normally give you, you normally, balance everything okay.
Okay. So Kimberly, we'll have you answer some questions. I know Dr. McLaughlin has a Facebook page where he shares a number of information on not just PCOS, but various disease conditions and stuff affecting women. And I am a beneficiary. I benefit from that page. I follow your page, so I could tell you. But in terms of the organization, I know you launched two years ago in the midst of the pandemic. Tell me about some of the services that you offer. Dr. McLaughlin is smiling. I listen. I read your stuff. So tell me about some of the support that is offered through Sisterhood Support. And there's a little bit background on it. And then you'll tell me a little bit about the activities that you have this year.
All right. So just to remind persons, Sisterhood Support Guyana is a support group that caters for women living with PCOS in Guyana or persons who have family diagnosed with PCOS. Now, like the name said, supports, it offers support to women, and like Dr. McLaughlin would have mentioned, that a lot of women, when diagnosed, a lot of them jump into depression. A lot of them, they feel hopeless, and that's where we come in. We come in to give that support. We come in to share pertinent information to keep them up to date. And once they're diagnosed and they're being treated, we also follow through with them to ensure that they're adhering to their medication. Because with PCOS, and probably Dr. McLaughlin would make mention of, once you're on treatment, you usually begin to see changes and improvement somewhere around 6 months or more. However, a lot of persons want immediate improvement. So once they start treatment, they look for that improvement. And if there's failure of such, of course, they may want to stop using their medication. And as such, they may relapse. And that's where we come in to ensure that you're keeping on your medication, you're using it correctly, and follow-ups is very, very important. So many times you may find that a physician may diagnose a patient, they may prescribe drugs, but there's a lack of follow-up. And if there's a lack of follow-up, then a patient wouldn't know whether their condition is improving or if it's getting worse. So we want to ensure that those patients are also staying connected with their physician or whoever is treating them to ensure that their treatment, if it's working, if their condition is improving, if they have to change your drug. And more importantly, support and also awareness, because truly, like I would have mentioned, the conversation really started when Sisterhood Support Guyana was formed. That's when a lot of persons became aware of what PCOS is, what it entails, what are the signs and symptoms, where they can seek help. So without awareness, without allowing persons to know what this disorder is, then we can begin to help them. Because if you don't know what you're experiencing, you don't know where to go, then we're back to square one. But I must say, over the past 2 years, and with the help of Dr. McColgan's clinic, we were able to capture so many women. We were able to get them so much help, and a lot of women, people, as soon as they hear PCOS, they love to throw around the word infertility. They love to immediately let you know, and even family members do this to persons within families, and that can be very depressing for anyone to not have the support from the family, to be trying for years and not have that help. And that's where we want to bridge that gap to ensure that there's that strong support. And the only persons who can really relate to persons who are living with PCOS is somebody else who has PCOS. If you don't have PCOS, then you can't come and sit and tell me, girl, you need to do this or you need to do that. Mm-hmm. Where you can have a group of persons who are suffering from the same disorder, who can relate to each other. That's where the support group comes in.
And from a medical perspective, Dr. McClurg, hello? From a medical perspective, you can speak to how important support is. Just touch on that a bit, and then we'll have Kimberly tell us about the activities for this year from Sisterhood Support.
Yes. Well, you guys know that medicine continues not only to be about the biology or the body, it continues to be about your environment.
Yes.
Your family. This is very important. Depression is something that most patients walk through my door with. Sometimes I have a young lady come in and you see she walks in with like 7 different persons behind her husband's mother, her husband's grandfather, their father, everybody, with this whole thing that she cannot conceive because she has PCOS. And these patients, that generally you find when they have they don't have the support, they're being blamed instead of supported at home. They tend to not follow through with the medication. They tend to not do the right things that they're supposed to do, because not having that someone to say, you know what, like the family to help you to cook the right food, to encourage you to exercise, to tell you not to give up. And this is something that I'm very proud that Sister does. A patient the other day told me about it, that, they keep following up with them, asking them how they're doing, making sure that they're not giving up, letting them know that we finally, after being under-recognized, under-diagnosed, and understudied, that finally we are getting somewhere in terms of some investigation into causes of PCOS and a possible solution in the near future. So the family itself needs to support these patients, because without that, we go nowhere. And one thing I need to touch on that I see very frequent, ever so often women with PCOS tend to get blamed for fertility issues or difficulty conceiving. And when you check it out, it's actually the male component that has the major problem.
Wow.
Like they have what you call oligospermia, we have a low sperm count. Some of them don't even have any at all. And this woman may have been going through trauma for years, especially, I don't know why it happens here in Ghana, but families, for some reason, people feel that the male is never the problem, that the female is always the problem. But having PCOS, no. With the assistance that we have, the technology we have right now, we can get you pregnant as fast as possible. All right?
Okay. So, and in terms of, you said that this is something that basically the males are also, the fertility is not a female condition, infertility that is. It's, a lot of males are affected by it. But what I was going to touch on is in terms of addressing the situation as it relates to some patients. You said that support is very vital. Kimberly, her organization deals with a lot of support and so on. But in terms of is it costly to manage?
No, actually, it's not. It's not. Again, depending on your socio-economic standard, we normally give you a diet plan accordingly, right? Because I cannot give a diet plan for someone, let's say, who works at the estate, right? Who is perhaps, let's say, a cleaner. A diet plan like a keto diet plan. We have to be very cautious because these persons will not be able to get most of these stuff to go on this diet accordingly. But in terms of, I think the most expensive part of it is is diagnosing it, right? Because in order to diagnose it, you have to do hormonal testing. And as you guys know, that's one of the most expensive things here in Ghana in terms of blood work, when you have to check hormones. So in terms of the treatment, getting the monthly pills if necessary and so on, no, I don't think so. It can be between $5,000 to $10,000 monthly for all the medication you need to treat PCOS.
Wow. So treatment is possible. Managing it is possible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So Kimberly, I know you have some activities planned, and you have your teal T-shirt on. That is the color that you use to basically raise awareness. Tell us a little bit more about the activities you have planned for this month. It's PCOS month, by the way, people. So a whole month of activities Sisterhood Support will have, and I'm sure Dr. McLaughlin will post something on his Facebook page. You can follow him on Facebook. He has interesting information about the female anatomy, and all the conditions that we deal with. You can follow him on Facebook. So Tiffany, tell us a little bit about the activities that you have planned for this month.
It's Kimberly, but yes. So
Kimberly, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, like you mentioned, September is PCOS Awareness Month, and of course, the color for PCOS awareness is teal.
Yes.
So throughout the entire month, of course, we're hosting various activities to help raise awareness. And I need to make mention of on the 3rd of September, we would have had our inaugural national walk, where we saw over 100 persons coming out to show their support. And I can say at least 75 to 8% of those persons are women who are living with PCOS in Ghana. Wow. And it was commendable to know that a lot of their partners came out to support them. A lot of families came out to support them. So that's where the awareness really did jumpstart for this month. And we also had our tree wrapping exercise, where we would have wrapped the trees from Camp Street in Lamaha all the way to North Road and Camp. So if anybody's passing there, I don't know if you pass Miss Ramsay, you would notice that the trees are wrapped in teal.
Yeah.
So it's another way to raise awareness, to start the conversation. And this Friday, we have a mural painting activity, which will be done on the seawalls within the vicinity of Movie Town, where we will be having live painting. We have an artist on board with us, and we will be doing a nice sketch out there, and persons can come in to join, to assist us to paint.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be doing an awareness piece out there. Every Tuesday, of course, we have our Teal Tuesdays, our 1 in 10, because we have persons raising awareness by wearing teal, whether it's an outfit, whether it's your nail, whether it's your hair, whatever you decide to do. Other organizations, workplaces, we have them wearing teal on Tuesday. In addition to this, we have weekly giveaways. So our current giveaway, we have a Care for Her giveaway, where we simply ask persons to participate by following our social media pages, reposting the flyer, and tomorrow we will select that winner that will win herself a hair care treatment, compliments of Perfect You Beauty Salon. So keeping our women in check is important. So we're finding various aspects and various activities that we can use to not only raise awareness, but also to help take care of the female physically and mentally as well. And on the 30th, we also will be having a grand surprise. So we don't want to share much about that. But of course, this again, we'll see a lot of women coming together to do something very interesting for the first time in Ghana, of course. So you can look out for that. And we have a special giveaway that will be done through Dr. McLaughlin's clinic, so that one female can benefit from free consultation. So you can look out for more of that as well. But once they follow our social media pages, Sisterhood Support Guyana on Facebook or Instagram, we post all of our updates. We have so much going on there. We have a lot of conversation. So we want to encourage persons to do that, to get all the updates that they need.
Thank you, Tiffany. Kimberly, I don't know where Tiffany came from. Dr. McLaughlin, just before we go, we're about to wrap up. I just wanted to let you emphasize that PCOS can affect it can affect everyone, right? It doesn't have a face or an ethnicity. Anybody could be affected by this condition. This.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, that's something that, like, that's one of the first thing I always try to explain to patients that don't feel bad about it. 40% of the world's population carries this defective gene. So it has nothing to do generally with your race, your sex, and well, your sex, of course, but your race, where you grew up, nothing of the sort. You can just develop it. What you need to do, like I always encourage most of these patients, and I keep reinforcing, I don't know if you realize I keep reinforcing two things. There are two main environmental triggers to PCOS. Dieting, proper dietary habits, and exercising. The NIH did a study where they found that if you do at least 150 minutes of exercise weekly, that's 30 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week. You understand? That's sufficient enough to actually help you in terms of not only weight loss, but regulating your menstrual cycle, help you to ovulate and all these other things without even putting a simple pill in your mouth. All right, so it is what it is, but anybody, it don't have any face at any age. It can actually appear. We see it in teenagers, we're seeing it in persons at the age of 28, 30. It comes at any age, at any time. All right?
And if somebody wants a general, they can go to any hospital, they can go to, where would you recommend they go to make sure that they get the correct diagnosis?
Well, I always like if you look at all of the definitions, they always keep saying it's one of the most common endocrine disorders,
yes,
right? In women in the reproductive age. The fact that it's a chronic, it's a common endocrine disorder. The best person they can see is an endocrinologist. All right, but again, we have here, like at my clinic, we have a team. We have 2 sonologists. We have OBGYN guys, we have, it's a big team. It's a multidisciplinary approach. But the first person, in my humble opinion, that you should see is an endocrinologist.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. Thank you, Kimberly. I don't know why I was calling you Tiffany earlier. Just a lot on my mind. So those who tune in, I'm sure a lot of people got some information about PCOS and its commonality, some of the things that they need to look for, and not to be misdiagnosed, because it's something that can be misdiagnosed a lot. So go check out a specialist, go to the hospital. If you find that you have the symptoms, you can look back at our Facebook feed and get some information. And you can also check out Dr. McLaughlin's Facebook page. He regularly posts stuff on women's issues, and you will be able to pinpoint, at least to know if you're leaning in that direction, and if you need a specialist advice on how to treat your condition. So thank you so much for listening. Until next Monday, we usually meet here on Kaieteur Radio to discuss health issues on your health matters. And you can drop me inbox something in the inbox, or you can write in the comment section if you want me to discuss a particular topic, and I will try my best to raise the issue and get someone to speak on it. So thank you so much for listening, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.